proposition and members of side opposition. Ladies and gentlemen, what has Team Lyceum told you today? We have told you that a global solution is one that meets several criteria. One that is sustainable, one that addresses the root cause of the current energy crisis, and one that provides equitable access to all. Now, what his side proposition on the other hand told us, they've come up here and harped on the fact that nuclear energy is renewable because we can direct some of the nuclear waste into other industries. And they cleverly mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, that one such industry is nuclear weaponry as well. And now we, being the humane opposition, believes that nuclear weaponry isn't the way the world is what the world should look at. One of their members said we need to empower them with this nuclear waste and allow them to use it in other industries. We don't believe that this is the proper solution. We are looking at a more diverse global solution, ladies and gentlemen, and that is what I'll be covering today. Before that, your question, sir.
Sir, you are aware that the byproducts of this nuclear material is also used as a hydrogen fuel, apart from the nuclear weaponry we just said, and then what nations are at the moment doing as hydrogen fuel to replace the natural gases in reducing a lot of carbon dioxide as well.
Yes, sir, I'm very much aware of that. I'm also aware of the fact that many countries around the world are violating the NPT and misusing nuclear wastage to develop nuclear weapons. So, seeing that the costs highly outweigh the pros, let me get back to our global solution, which is a more sustainable one and which addresses the status quo which we have identified today. What has caused the energy crisis, ladies and gentlemen, is the monopolization of fossil fuels. Now, back then, ladies and gentlemen, when nations decided to use fossil fuels, they did not think about the future. They did not consider the fact that fossil fuels are going to run out. In the same way, the side proposition isn't considering the fact that uranium in the future is going to run out. Therefore, what are we looking at? We are looking at a diverse network, a global local solution, and we are telling you not to put all your eggs in one basket. Because what happens when side proposition puts all the eggs in one basket and someone sits on it? No fried eggs for tonight. So because of this reason, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to make a very simple economic comparison so that the simple man understands why nuclear energy isn't the right solution and sustainable energy in hydropower and geothermal is. Now the IPCC reports is that 2% of the world's yes sir, your question.
Sir, do you agree with me if I say that how much statistics you brought up, if there isn't a world to live in another 20 years because of this depletion of the ozone layer and carbon dioxide emission, we would be actually using any of this?
Honorable sir, I do not believe that you've been paying attention to my first, second and third speaker, as we clearly stated as to how sustainable resources greatly are lesser polluting than nuclear energy. Now, yes sir, your question.
Sir, actually, do you think that there's any kind of toxic gas, toxic waste material emitting from the nuclear plants other than the radioactivation, which is actually sustained inside the containers itself?
Sir, no. As of now, sir, I do not need to bring out the chemistry in what exact components are there in nuclear radiation, but I can point out very clearly that in Chernobyl and in Fukushima, there have been mutations and genetic deformities caused by nuclear energy, and this is proof enough that nuclear energy does cause side effects. Now, coming back to my economic comparison, sir, 2%, ladies and gentlemen, and we have 435 reactors in the world as of now. Imagine a world in which we have 90% nuclear energy. We will need 19,575 reactors. That will cost us 143,550 billion US dollars. While spending on another energy source and allowing developed nations to abuse us, ladies and gentlemen, we are forgetting the poor. We are forgetting the countries like Ethiopia, Mongolia, Chad, which need a sustainable energy source. With this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we have proved our burden of proof, and we clearly state that sustainable development is through sustainable resources and sustainable energy. Thank you.
At the conclusion of round 2, we are ready to present to both the teams their last and final lifeline, a chance to consult their coaches, to get a third-party opinion about how their strategy so far has worked out. Until then, let's take a very short commercial break. Welcome back. This is The Debater, ready to move into one of the most aggressive and intense rounds of the show. This is the Rapid Fire.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the opposing team given as a solution, diversification. But in the present day, we are suffering with the energy crisis. aren't we using diversification? We are using solar energy, hydropower, and wind energy. It's diversification, but still we are suffering with the energy crisis. So, moving on to my next point, that they ask, what are we going to do for countries like Ethiopia and other small countries? We'll use a centralized method. We'll produce nuclear energy in one particular place and distribute all over the globe. That's the thing.
Well, sir, you call it centralization, we call it monopolization, which is exactly why the energy crisis is here in the first place. And, sir, diversification, well, the solution is to invest more. Countries have ignored renewable resources completely. It's time to focus on renewable resources more.
Ma'am, you said about investing more, and but ma'am, where would you build so-called diversity energy sources? Where would you build more solar panels? Where would you build more hydro power stations when we are already deforesting all our limit, and there's no single space remaining for the future?
So where exactly would you be building nuclear power plants? So you have a barrier zone there. You have to have the certain standards. Where exactly will you build in these? Thank you.
So are you aware that actually I mentioned that you should come to the 21st century where the generation 3 reactor is just a small size of this room. Apart from that, it's smaller than this room actually.
But unfortunately, sir, the damage that nuclear reactions and nuclear explosions cost will take areas and areas. And your so-called efficient solution fails to address the root causes of the energy crisis. And also, what guarantee do we have against disasters like Chernobyl and Fukushima occurring again, sir?
Madam, this is why my second speaker mentioned that we live in the 21st century where we have developed technology, where the nuclear energy can produce a mass number of electricity, which is about 2 gigawatts, which is a high amount of electricity that would be produced by a nuclear energy source.
Is the Honourable Opposition aware, even though our captain was going on about how exactly your efficient point about how efficient exactly nuclear energy is, it was counted by our captain. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to remind you that merely the waste disposal of a nuclear energy reactor, just one, will cost over 35,771 million US dollars, and that is just for one single power plant. And what do you expect will happen in a current situation where we are currently facing a global economic crisis as well? How will you be able to supply for more and more of these nuclear reactors?
You speak of the cost we have to go on managing the waste from nuclear power plants. What cost can you give to manage the depletion of the ozone layer? Can you ever give a cost to get the ozone layer back? Ozone layer comes, where's the depletion of ozone layer comes? It comes just from the so-called diversity energy sources you use today.
Sir, it is unfortunate that the proposition is unable to understand the solution that the opposition is presenting you with. We are talking about renewable resources, ladies and gentlemen, which do not damage the ozone layer. And in fact, your so-called nuclear solution emits about 40 to 140 grams of CO2. But solar panels, hydropower, much less than that. What do you have to say about that, sir?
There's no, there's telling that there's an emission of carbon dioxide from radiations, but there's only the emission of enriched uranium or that particular nuclear source. So that 95%, only 5% of energy is grabbed, and that 90% can be again renewed.
So how exactly are you all going to dispose the waste created by this process itself, as currently all the waste is buried underground, sir?
So I believe that in my speech I first proved that in this 21st century we have already managed the problem of disposing the nuclear waste.
Sir, we might be living in the 21st century, but your statement is very vague and you have not told if this becomes a global solution and all the countries start producing nuclear waste, where about 192 countries are going to find space to bury waste when it takes about 25,000 years for the nuclear waste to decompose.
We propose the centralized method that it produce in one place and distribute all out the world. And talking about the environmental impact, they're accusing that nuclear energy is the one who is destroying the others' lives and giving out radiation. That is not because of the nuclear energy, that is improper use of that particular source, improper use of nuclear energy.
Well, the proposition you have mentioned, in fact, towards our own side. You have been going on and on about how exactly these resources are not managed well and not distributed well. That is the main reason for the global energy crisis, which is why we are here debating this topic today. Please realize this mistake on your part, sir.
Ma'am, we clearly mentioned that the centralized government is all about your questions on management and monopolization. According to us, we have answered all your requirements for nuclear energy to be sustainable and a good solution. And viewers, I must say that if we don't go for nuclear energy now, we live in dark in 25 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, our final statement. We reject nuclear solution as being unsustainable, as being too cost expensive, and as being inefficient and failing to address the root causes of the energy crisis.
At the conclusion of rapid fire, points were brought out, arguments were rebutted. We heard terms such as security, terms such as capacity, terms such as violations of the NPT. There are still doubt left in the minds of the audience. Will this be cleared? We move into the last and final round of the debater, the closing statements.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Team Lyceum is here today to tell you exactly why Lyceum International School won this debate as side opposition. Now, let me make a case-by-case comparison of what happened during the debate today. What did side proposition come here and tell us? They told us and they made very fundamentally flawed assumptions on their side in saying that we are going to carry out a cost-benefit analysis to you and show you as to how nuclear energy is the most efficient, most regulative and most safe manner in which we can produce energy in the future. And they continuously harped on the fact that we live in the 21st century. Yes, we do understand that we live in the 21st century, but what you failed to do, ladies and gentlemen, was to prove your burden of proof. And that was to bring out and show to us that in a majority of cases, what you say is right. And we have completely rebutted your points by saying that, look, nuclear energy is not the most efficient way of solving the energy crisis, because the energy crisis was created due to the monopolization of the energy market. How was the energy market monopolized, ladies and gentlemen? Because developed nations bought fossil fuel, misused fossil fuel and used the limited supply of fossil fuel to charge high prices from the developing and third world countries. Now, we believe that this is a fundamental on-side proposition because they are not addressing the status quo. They are basically sweeping the problem under the carpet and saying, look, let the developed world abuse the developing world and let us go back to the status quo. And we on-side opposition, ladies and gentlemen, on the other hand, provided a global solution of diversification. We told them that the 37,770 million US dollars don't need to be spent on the waste produced by nuclear energy, but can be invested